What happens in January when Santa Claus has left and there's no more of that? What happens then? What do you do then? So I have a fun video for you guys. I hope you guys are ready. Grab your popcorn, grab your snacks and your drinks, because it's gonna be a long one. I'm gonna be talking about so much in this video, including like my general thoughts, my general approach to Santa Claus, what I'm gonna do personally as a mom to my two little girls. I have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, so we are just now, starting to think more about Santa and how to navigate it. So I'm gonna share how I will personally do this, and then I'm also going to address like the issues of lying. I know that came up for you guys. A lot of you guys are worried about lying about Santa, but then you're like, okay, well, how do I come clean? How do I respond to their questions? If we're not participating in the whole Santa Claus thing, then how do I prevent my child from ruining it for other little ones? So it's a lot. I got my notes with me so I can stay on track, but before we get into the video, I just want to say, if you haven't already, be sure to grab my Positive Parenting Bundle. Be sure to grab it if you're struggling with things like tantrums, aggression, not listening, anger as a parent. Then be sure to check out this bundle because it is packed full of information, and the best part is it's free. So the link will be in my description for you to grab your free bundle. All right, without further ado, let's get into the video. So what are my, general thoughts about this whole Santa Claus thing? Well, I really think that every family has to make this decision personally, right? Like, it's up to you. And I think that, you have the right to raise your children the way that you want to, right? As long as it's not abusive, and as long as you're not neglectful or cruel, by all means, right? But, when it comes to Santa Claus, I really do think that every family should have the liberty of deciding how to best navigate it in the ways that work for them, right? And that are aligned with their own values, their own beliefs, and also the child, right? And the child's needs. So I don't think there's a hard and fast rule here. I'm not going to be the one that's like, you need to tell them about Santa Claus! Or
you can't tell them about Santa Claus, don't ruin it.
I'm walking the middle path here. Now, I think there are some best practices when we think about this that I will get into, but in general, I don't think there are hard and fast rules when it comes to Santa Claus. I think it's a choice. The reason why I think that it's important to think this way overall about Santa is because I think it's important to then pass this on to your child, right? Like, it's a choice. It's a choice if you want to believe in Santa Claus or not, right? We all have the choice to believe or not. And I think the most important thing is to emphasize the spirit of Santa, the spirit of generosity, of kindness, and giving, right? That is what the spirit of the holidays is supposed to be about. And so I think it's important just to not lose sight of that, not lose sight of the spirit of the holidays, and that we can all be in the spirit of Santa, if you will, in the spirit of kindness and giving. So I think another thing that I want to point out is that I think there's a myth that if we tell our kids that Santa is not real, we are going to be ruining the magic of Christmas. I don't think that's true. I don't think that if we are honest with them that Santa is a fictional character that we can choose to believe in or not, that we are ruining the magic. Because here's the thing, kids love to imagine, right? All day long they're engaged in pretend play, and it's fun for them, right? Just because they know that, for example, they're not actually really a mom, doesn't distract from the fun of pretending to be mommy during doll time, for example. I'm just giving you a quick example there, right? Like, they love to engage in fantasy play and imaginative play, and so telling the truth is not going to ruin the magic for them around Christmas. You can still play the game of Santa. You can still engage in the fun traditions of writing him letters, baking him cookies, and all of the things, right? Watching and seeing the gifts appear under the tree, like, that's magical for little kids. And just if even if they know that it's not real, doesn't mean that they're not going to have fun with it. So I think really that if you want to tell them it's true, that's okay, right? If you want to tell them, hey, like Santa, and you want them to believe in Santa, I think that's okay. I just think that it's important to always be clear that Santa will always be kind, right? I'm not a fan of this whole like naughty or nice, making the naughty or nice list, and he's watching you and he knows if you've been good or bad, and you know, all of that. Like, I'm not a fan of that. So I really do think we need to emphasize to our kids that Santa is a kind character. He's a kind man, and that he's going to be nice to you, right? Irregardless. I'm not a fan of instilling fear into our child just to make them comply or to influence their behavior. So that is the thing. So I think there is a middle ground here, right? Like, we can encourage them to believe when they're young. And that's actually really the approach that I'm taking. Like, we're talking about Santa. If they want to believe in it, great. When they get older and they start to ask questions about it, they start to engage in more critical thinking, then I think it's really important to encourage them to think critically, right? Because they're going to be thinking, okay, is there this man who's riding around in a sleigh and delivering presents all around the world? Like, how does he get to everybody in one night? Or how does he fit through our chimney if we don't have a chimney? That kind of thing. Like, as they get older, they're going to start thinking about this a little bit more critically, and I think that's a good thing. And I think that that's where we need to have conversations with them about Santa Claus, because lying to them and just trying to convince them to still believe in it when they're starting to show signs of critical thinking, it can be harmful, right? So there's a fine line there, right? So while they're young, it's fun and it's magical, and we see Santa Claus all around town in the decorations and whatever. And then as they get older, probably 5, 6, 7, 8, wherever, the average age that children find out Santa is not real is around 8, but I'm sure they engage in critical thinking before that, right? This is a process. And so as soon as they start asking you questions about it, that's when it's time to have those conversations. I'm not a fan of just blatantly lying and being like, yeah, he's real. Oh yeah, he is a real character. Okay, no. Don't do that. I don't think you should do that, because that is blatantly lying, and I know that a lot of you guys are concerned about that, right? So the top question was like, okay, well, if I am on board with this whole Santa thing, will it create trust issues for my child, right? Will this dampen our relationship? And I love that you guys are thinking about this, and I can see where this concern comes from, obviously, right? And I think that I think that it's not black or white. I think that it is something that can be managed, right? So if you're really concerned and you're like, I don't want to lie to my kid, are you crazy? Like, I'm not doing Santa. Then by all means, mama, like, do you, right? Again, how I started this video, like, you have to decide what works for you. And if you are like, I'm not a fan of this, I'm not on board, I don't want to do this, then absolutely tell them. Santa is a fictional character that people like to believe in, just like the Easter Bunny, or just like, you know, ghosts or whatever. I don't know. You might believe in ghosts, but I'm thinking of like Halloween characters and things, and the Tooth Fairy. And so you can stress that, yeah, this is pretend, and you can choose to believe in it or not. It's totally up to you. But some people like to believe that Santa is real, or they like to pretend that Santa is real. But I also think that you can still incorporate Santa in a way that's pretend, right? Like, you can still say, like, let's pretend Santa is real and make him cookies, or let's pretend that Santa's gonna read our Christmas list, and let's make a list of all the toys that we want, whatever, right? So you can still like incorporate Santa and also be truthful that he is a pretend character, and I think that that is totally fine. Another question was like, okay, well, when should I come clean? There's no magical age for this. There's no magical age. It's like, okay, at 5 years old, you need to come clean to your child if you've been saying that Santa is real. I think, again, this is gonna go off of your child and the questions that they start to ask you, right? So if they start to ask you like, well, how do reindeers fly? Or, you know, how does Santa make it inside my chimney? Or how does he get to all the houses in the world in one night? That's when it's time to have those conversations, and I'll talk about that in a second. What to say if your child asks, you know, well, is he real? And blatantly just asks you flat out, is he real? Is this real? So again, the age range is around 7 to 10 where you'll likely start to get these questions, but it can always be sooner or later. For some kiddos, the average is around 8 where they figure it out. What I would do is I would start with asking them back a question of, well, what do you think, right? What do you think about Santa? Do you think he's real? Or like, what makes you ask that? Like, start with some curiosity. And it's not that you're trying to like deflect or, you know, not answer their question, but I want you to start with some curiosity because that will inform what you'll then say later, right? So if they're like, oh, well, I don't think he's real, then that's a great time to be like, yeah, you know, actually, he's not real. It's a character that we like to pretend is real, and it's rooted in talk about the magic of Christmas, talk about the spirit of Santa and why people like to pretend that he's real. Again, going back to the values, right, of generosity, of kindness. But if they're like, you know, I don't know, like, or they're like, I think he's real, then you might, you know, continue that narrative. You know, it's really up to you. So you really have to kind of feel it out first, though. Ask them what makes them ask. Ask them what they think about it. And it's okay for you to allow them to come to their own conclusions in their own time. But I wouldn't lie, right? So if they're like, well, no, tell me, is he real or not? I wouldn't lie. I would say, no, he's pretend. Okay, we don't need to continue this, right? I wouldn't just flat out be like, oh yeah, he's real. At any point would I ever do that. So again, if my child comes and asks me, is Santa real, Mom? I'm gonna say, oh, what makes you think that? Or what do you think? And then if they're like, no, but like, what do you think? Is he real or not? Like, I need to know. Then I would say yes. Yeah, or no, he's not real. Now, again, your answers about Santa, like, I'm giving you a little bit of like what I would do. Again, my little ones are 2 and 3, so I haven't actually had this conversation with them. Take these as like ideas, but I really do think that the way that you have this conversation and the things that you talk about is going to be highly dependent on your own family, your own values, your own beliefs, your spiritual beliefs, and ultimately, like, what you hope your child will learn from this experience. That's how you're going to kind of structure these conversations, right? Based on your own values and your beliefs. Some families, you know, like to talk about the spirit of Christmas, you know, still being alive, or others like to dive into the true meaning of Christmas, right? Or some parents like to tell kids that Christmas is all about giving, and that now that they know the truth about Santa, they can actually embody Santa, right? They can embody Santa's spirit and give back to others. So there's different ways to approach this, right? No approach is necessarily right or wrong. I don't believe that, right? I believe that it'll be highly dependent, again, on your own values and your own beliefs. Another big question was like, okay, if we're not choosing to hop on this whole Santa train, well, how do I prevent my child from spoiling it for other kids? And I think that's a really good question, because I think this is important, right? It's important to have this conversation with them. And I think it comes down to prepping them beforehand. When it's clear that they no longer or don't at all believe in Santa, it's always important to prep them. Like, it doesn't mean that they need to lie, but that they need to keep quiet, right? If people talk about Santa, you know, you can excuse yourself, or you can just stay quiet, or you can share a past memory, but it's just really important that you don't ruin it for other little ones. And this all comes down to just treating people with kindness, treating people with respect. And I think, like, comparing it to religion, some people choose to believe certain things and some people don't, and that's okay. And if they're choosing to believe it, we can respect it, right? We'll never want to say that their belief is wrong. And that's the same kind of concept you want to teach your child, to respect others' beliefs. Again, help them see that we can still embody the spirit of Santa in the way that we treat others, right? With kindness, with generosity. Helping them understand that each family chooses to believe things differently, and that that's okay, and that that's beautiful, right? That, again, if we are continuing these conversations about diversity and differences, that we can celebrate differences even when it comes to Santa again. And also, I think it's really important that to let them know if they ever get a question from somebody saying, well, do you believe Santa's true, or is Santa true? Always teach your child to direct that other person's questions to an adult, right? Like, oh, you should, and give them the words, right? Like, oh, that's a good question. I think you should ask your parents about that, right? That we don't ever need to feel that burden or that responsibility to answer these types of pointed questions. And I think it's important to let your child know, right? And give them the words to handle those conversations in the event that somebody asks them directly. Okay, so other questions that you guys had were, how can white parents incorporate multicultural Santas without being insensitive? And I love this question, and this was sparked from conversations that we've been having in my Instagram stories, which, by the way, you should follow me if you're not already at the Psychologist on Instagram. I talked about how there is a major lack of diversity in Santa Claus, right? And that we always see white Santa Claus. Now, the last couple years, granted, we're seeing more and more black Santas, and I love it. I'm here for it. And I think that we all should incorporate multicultural Santas into, how we talk about Santa and how we integrate it into our home. I think that it's really important, going back to celebrating diversity. And I think that, everybody should have multicultural Santas. Just like we have multicultural dolls, I think it's really important to celebrate diversity in our home. Just like our books, just like our dolls, just like our TV shows, right? It's just all inclusive. It's how we live our life, right? This is a lifestyle. This question about am I being insensitive if I incorporate multicultural Santas? Well, insensitivity implies that you don't care about other people's feelings, right? But I think that if you're incorporating multiculturalism and diversity in your parenting, I think that's the opposite of insensitivity, right? Because you are being inclusive. You are saying essentially that Santa looks like all of us, and that this is great. And that is the opposite of insensitivity. So I think you go for it, right? I think, again, everybody should have multicultural Santas. And then thoughts of Elf on the Shelf, watching you, being the spy for Santa. Not a fan of it. I will not be integrating that into my practices. And then another question, not believing he's real or still having a magical time during Christmas. Is it possible, right? So the question of if my child doesn't believe he's real, can he still have a magical Christmas? Of course. Because again, it's all about embodying the spirit of Santa, of embodying generosity and kindness. That is the spirit of Christmas. That is the magic of Christmas, I think, in the holiday season. And also, I'll probably come up with a post or another video on this, but there's so many ways to embody the magic of the holiday season outside of Santa, right? There's the baking Christmas cookies together. There's the walking and seeing the Christmas lights, or making homemade gifts for the people and the family and the friends that we love. There's, volunteering and, treating people with extra kindness around this time. Again, that is the magic of Christmas. So absolutely, you can do both, right? If your child doesn't believe in Santa Claus, it's not going to take away the magic of Christmas. I truly believe it. And it's not going to take away from the fun of pretending that he's real. Because again, children love to pretend. They love to imagine. And another question that I got was that a mom saying, I think my 11-year-old knows that Santa isn't real, but won't say anything. Should I bring it up or let him decide? Yeah. Probably he already knows by this point, but you can ask him, hey, what do you think about Santa Claus? you could just ask an open-ended question. Hey, what do you think about Santa Claus? Is there any questions that you have about Santa Claus? And just kind of go from there. But yeah, I would talk to him about it this holiday season, since he's, you know, he's getting older. Another question that I received was how to best share with others that you don't like and don't do the naughty or nice list stuff. I think be straightforward, right? And in a respectful way, you can just let people know, you know, I don't believe that we should manipulate kids into being good, right? 1 month out of the year. I don't think that we should, you know, manipulate them to do something so that they can get a gift, right? Or get material things. Those are not the values that I believe in, right? Or I believe that, you know, we should encourage our children to make good choices. I think that we should teach them responsibility and self-discipline, and you know, how to develop intrinsic motivation instead of encouraging them to have this extrinsic or external motivation, again, for gifts. And I just really believe that that's our job as parents, to work ourselves out of a job and teach our child how to discipline themselves. And so, you know, again, just opening it up to a conversation of like, this is just my beliefs. These are the things that I believe in and why I think it's important. You, again, can believe whatever you want. Again, how I opened up this video, right? That we all are coming from different places as parents, depending on our values, depending on our beliefs, depending on our spirituality practices, and that I don't think we should, you know, necessarily tell people what to believe in or not, or what to do or not, and that this is what we're doing in our home, this is what works best for us. And you know, I don't, you know, and again, you can say like, I don't ever want my child to feel like my love for them is conditional, right? Or that it's based on them being good or not. What does that even mean, right? We all make mistakes. And so again, like, I am not a fan of that whole mentality when it comes to Santa Claus of like, you know, he sees you when you're good, he knows when you've been bad and whatever, like, and that whole like trying to manipulate kids to be good, which again, what are we even talking about, right? Are we talking about blind obedience? What? And you know, again, why that's not really a good thing if we're trying to teach critical thinking skills. But again, I digress. So yeah, just to be clear, I'm not a fan of that whole thing, because I think it's done out of selfishness as adults. And you know what happens in January when Santa Claus has left and there's no more of that? What happens then? What do you do then? So anyways, but tell me in the comments, like, what do you guys think about this? How are you planning on handling Santa Claus this year, and with your little ones? What other questions do you have? Like, let's talk about this together as a community. I think this should be just an open, you know, respectful discussion, if you will. And again, don't forget to download that free bundle, girl, okay? If you're struggling with tantrums, aggression, not listening, mommy anger, whatever it is, do yourself a favor and download that bundle. It's completely free. Link is in the description. And I think that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Join the family if you haven't already. Hit that bell. That just tells YouTube that you want to be notified of all my future videos. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.